2nd of November, 1944, Germany. A P-51D Mustang from the 355th Fighter Group was hit by German flak near Osnabrück. The shell tore through a radiator line, minor damage, but enough to kill the engine. Losing coolant fast, Lieutenant Jack Becker made a forced landing in a beet field, skidding to a stop in the frozen mud. The plane was almost untouched, and pilot escaped. But within hours, the Luftwaffe had their prize, having learned about the discovery from local farmers. By dusk, the American Mustang already sits under a net at a dispersal strip near Rheine Hopsten, guarded by 2 sullen Feldgendarmen and a curious crowd of Luftwaffe ground crew. Unteroffizier Karl Heinen, a senior airframe mechanic, circles the nose with a notebook and a cigarette that's burned to paper. Last month he was seconded to a German plane, Me-262 detachment at Lechfeld, where they changed engines like light bulbs and signed off engines with a time since start column that never reached 30 hours. Heinen watches 2 men pop quarter-turn fasteners on the Mustang's cowl with a coin and lifts the panel with one hand. "Dzus," he says, almost admiringly. "No screws to lose." Inside is a Packard V16507, a licensed Merlin with American tags stamped in clean, proud lettering. Lines are color-coded. Heinen has spent nights fishing a 190s hidden pushrod tube from behind a hot cylinder bank. This engine looks like a training aid. "It's not elegant," his junior, Gefreiter Schulte, says. Heinen shakes his head. "It's elegant for war." They pull more panels. The radiator scoop under the belly, the Americans call it the Meredith device, shows a spray bar, shutter, and ducting you could service with a single spanner. The main gear doors come off in minutes. The wheels are standard sizes he's seen on 3 other American types. The wing walk has stencils for jack points and fuel grades, 100/130 here, 75 gal aux there. The drop tank pylons are simple forged lugs with quick disconnects and sway braces, no mystery plumbing. Off to one side, a ground radio team tests the captured set. SCR-522 VHF, 4 rock-solid channels, clear as a bell across the field. Heinen thinks of the crackling Fugue 16 that turned to mush at the worst times. In the cockpit, the Americans have left their gospel taped next to the throttle quadrant, a laminated emergency checklist, oil dilution switch, and mixtures labeled in big block text. The gun sight is a K-14 gyro late model, its reticle dancing with target lead like a conjurer's trick. Heinen holds it next to a Revi 16B sight pulled from a wrecked 109. The Revi is honest glass and iron. The K-14 is mathematics in a box. One of the pilots from the Staffel, Lieutenant Pips Hartwig, FAC, climbs up and sits. He turns the dial marked target wingspan, slews the pipper on an imaginary bomber and mutters, "We are shooting with bows. They are shooting with prediction." They look under the skin. The spars are straight, the ribs stamped and spot-welded, the wiring looms lashed like hospital tubing. The laminar flow wing isn't witchcraft. It's careful sheet metal with flush rivets where it matters and universal head where it doesn't. The oxygen system is modular. The radio tray slides out like a kitchen drawer. The battery sits on a shelf you can reach without removing half the airplane. Everywhere they find the same philosophy. Make it the same. Make it simple. Make it fast. The Mustang isn't perfect. Heinen sees thin skins that dent, a tailwheel door already bent, cooling shutters that will jam with mud. But a line chief could swap those in an hour with the parts bin the Americans always seem to have. Someone drags over a crate stenciled North American aviation spares. Inside, filters, bulbs, belts, even spark plugs, all wrapped in waxed paper with diagrams a farm boy could follow. Schulte fishes out a manual printed on waterproof stock, *AN0160JE2. He flips pages. Every system is explodable, every torque value listed. Heinen remembers the Me-262 maintenance sheet from Lechfeld. Hand-typed, smudged, evolved daily, because yesterday's fix no longer applied. At midnight, with the Mustang hidden and the pilot in a guard shack, Heinen closes his notebook and says what the pilots won't. It won't matter. The P-51 isn't a miracle. It's a good airplane designed for a nation that can send 1,000 more. The Me-262 is a miracle. Miracles break. They starve for nickel, chrome, and time. In the morning, they will drain the tanks and tow the Mustang to a hangar. A Feldwebel will draft a report for Rechlin. But the conclusion is already written in the cold air of a Westphalian dispersal. This war in the sky will not be decided by whose engineers are cleverest. It will be decided by whose factories can make clever, simple, and do it again tomorrow. Dawn. November 3rd, 1944. The fog hasn't lifted. The captured Mustang sits in a hangar beside a battered Fool 198, stripped for parts. Two mechanics in gray overalls stand between them as if judging two philosophies in metal form. Oberfeldwebel Heinen has been ordered to prepare a report for Technisches Amt, Luftwaffe's technical branch. He has 6 men, 1 fuel drum, and no illusions. Treat it as a crash evaluation, his captain told him. Learn what you can. We might use it. The Mustang's belly panels come off in 10 minutes. The fuel lines are marked in English and color-coded blue for main, red for drop. The plumbing is simple, direct. No unnecessary valves. A German aircraft uses threaded couplings, machined like watch parts. This American machine uses flared fittings, tightened by hand, sealed by copper washers. It leaks less because it expects leaks, Schulte mutters. We would call that sloppy. Heinen replies. We would call that German. They weigh the parts. Aluminum where the 190 uses steel. Fabric where Germans use plywood. Not weaker, just optimized for production. Each component could come from a different plant and still fit perfectly. Heinen remembers his time at Lechfeld. Half the 262 seconds grounded, waiting for matched turbine blades from one supplier. Here, everything is standardized. No part requires a master craftsman. The wings are bolted, not riveted permanently. Sections can be replaced by line crews. A flight engineer arrives from Gageschwader 54, a tired man with frostbitten fingers and news from the east. They say the Russians have their own Mustang now, he jokes grimly. He's wrong, it's a Lend-Lease P-39, but the humor dies quickly. The men know what it means. The Allies have endless airplanes, endless fuel, endless metal. Germany has none. They open the gun bays. 4 Browning. 50 seconds in each wing. Each with ammo feeds curved like serpents of polished steel. German MG. 151 seconds require careful harmonization and feed alignment. The Brownings? Plug and play. Ammunition boxes load in seconds. The belts are disintegrating links, no drums, no jamming chains. Heinen realizes you could teach any ground man to reload them in minutes. Simple enough for farmhands, he says, and they have 1,000,000 farmhands. Schulte points to the wing spar. Stamped in block letters. North American Aviation, Inglewood, California. 1944. The date is only 2 months old. That far across the ocean, and here it is. Schulte whispers. We cannot even move a fuselage from Bremen without bombing raids. They run a compression test. The Packard Merlin fires on the first pull. The sound is smooth, less harsh than a Daimler-Benz. The tachometer needle steadies at 1,200 revolutions per minute. The ground crew stares. They can't believe an enemy engine can idle without shaking. It is civilized, says one. No temper. Heinen notes the gauges. Oil pressure steady, coolant stable, generator charging. The American instruments are simple white needles on black dials, no clutter. A mechanic could swap any of them between aircraft without rewiring. By noon, Heinen has a list. Each point reads like a confession. Same bolts everywhere. Standard electrical connectors. Replaceable panels. No wasted materials. Manuals written for soldiers, not engineers. At lunch, they eat cold bread in the hangar and talk quietly. The Americans have hundreds of P-51 seconds over the front every day, escorting bombers as far as Berlin. Each consumes hundreds of liters of fuel per mission. The mechanics try to calculate what that means in gasoline, in engines, in manpower. The numbers make no sense. Maybe we still have quality, one says weakly. Heinen looks at the Me-262 parked outside, its engines under tarps because there's no kerosene to fly it. Quality is hungry, he replies. Quantity eats less. That afternoon, an officer from Rechlin arrives in a black car. He's young, confident, pencil-thin mustache, the kind who still believes new wonder weapons will turn the war. Heinen hands him the preliminary notes. The officer flips pages, frowns. You think this machine's superior? He asks. Heinen hesitates. Not superior. Sustainable. The officer snaps the folder shut. We will never win by being like Americans, he says, leaving without saluting. When the car disappears down the muddy taxiway, Heinen lights another cigarette. He's right, he says quietly. We won't. As the light fades, the Mustang gleams faintly under the hangar lamps, orderly, purposeful, built for a world Germany no longer belongs to. The men close the cowl, stand in silence, and know what the officer will never admit. The Americans have turned the airplane into a product, not a prototype. And that is how you win a sky. World War II cinematic scriptwriter said, November 5, 1944, Rheine Hopsten Airfield. For 3 days, the P-51 has sat under guard beside the fuel drums, drawing more visitors than the surviving Me-262 seconds parked on the far end of the field. Pilots from JG-26, engineers from Luftwaffe, even an inspector from Messerschmitt, all come to look at the machine that escorts bombers deep into Germany and returns again and again. Oberfeldwebel Heinen and his men have made it run. They refilled the coolant with captured ethylene glycol, bled the lines, and borrowed 100-octane fuel from an experimental stockpile. At 0900, they start the engine in front of a small crowd. The Packard Merlin fires instantly, its exhausts tracing faint blue ghosts in the mist. The sound is steady, restrained. German engines bark and cough on startup. This one hums, almost polite. The prop arc blurs, the tail lifts slightly from thrust. Heinen watches gauges as if studying an answer sheet. Oil, 75 pounds per square inches. Coolant, 90 degrees Celsius. Fuel pressure stable. He writes, runs clean, no leaks, ready for test flight. The test pilot, Lieutenant Ernst Kruger, climbs aboard. He's 26, veteran of Russia and Normandy, flown everything from Bf-109Gs to early 262 prototypes. He runs through the pre-flight checklist written in English mixture, prop, trim, and grins. Everything labeled. Even a recruit could start it. The control tower clears the field. The Mustang rolls forward, accelerating smoothly. Its tail rises after 30 meters. By 80, it's airborne. Kruger banks left over the field, climbing easily through the haze. Ground crews watch in silence as the captured fighter circles once, twice, then streaks east at treetop height. 10 minutes later, the Mustang lands perfectly, rolls to a stop beside the hangar. Kruger kills the engine, climbs down, and pulls off his helmet. Gentlemen, he says, I have flown the future, and it belongs to someone else. Number 1. Gentlemen. Number 1. Heinen asks for details. Kruger lists them off mechanically. Stability excellent. Elevator light but not twitchy. Visibility superb all around, even below. Controls balanced. No vibration at high power. She climbs faster than a 190A8 on emergency boost. Turns tighter. And range, the gauge still reads 3/4 full. How far? Someone asks. 4, maybe 500 kilometers left. Maybe more. You could fly from Paris to Berlin and back. Heinen looks at his own notes. The Mustang carries 2 wing tanks and a fuselage tank behind the seat, exactly 269 gallons total. That's over 1,000 kilometers of range, more with external drop tanks. Every figure contradicts the Luftwaffe's assumptions. Kruger's tone turns grim. We built interceptors 109 seconds. 190 seconds made for short, sharp fights. They built hunters. They can escort bombers from England to Hungary, and they build them faster than we can fix ours. The men inspect the fuselage tank. Simple bladder construction, rubberized fabric, mounted with 4 bolts. You could remove it in 10 minutes. The Americans even thought of vapor explosions. The tank vents through a flame arrestor, an idea none of them have ever seen. At noon, Heinen receives permission to compare the Mustang directly with a captured Mi-109G-10 parked nearby. They push both airframes side by side on the concrete. The contrast is painful. The 109 is a craftsman's airplane, narrow, complex, every surface curved like sculpture. The Mustang is industrial. Clean lines, modular assemblies, few fasteners. The Germans admire their 109 for precision. They realize it's also a trap. Every one requires a specialist's hands. The Mustang requires workers. Schulte notes that the 109's landing gear takes hours to align properly. The Mustang's struts slide into place and use adjustable shims replaceable in the field. 1,000 millimeters apart, Heinen says, tapping his notebook. Standard spacing. I've seen this same strut on a Thunderbolt wreck. They study the propeller Hamilton standard, constant speed, same unit used on bombers and transports. The hub can be serviced with a single wrench. The Mi-262 nearby uses a custom prop starter coupling that demands a factory jig. The difference is the whole war in miniature. That evening, the test report is written. Its conclusion: the P-51 design shows consistent emphasis on standardization and ease of production. Performance exceptional for weight. Endurance extraordinary. In comparison, German aircraft required disproportionate effort in assembly and maintenance. If enemy production continues at present rate, air superiority will be impossible to reverse. It's the first honest document Heinen has written in months. He adds a final line not meant for the report. This aircraft is not built to be better. It is built to be many. 2 days later, the report leaves for Rechlin. No one expects a reply. By the time it reaches Berlin, the Mustang's contrails already stretch across every horizon. For the men at Rheine, the captured P-51 is less a trophy than a mirror, and what it shows them is the end. November 10th, 1944. Rheine Hopsten Airfield. 5 days after the test flight, the P-51D stands parked beside the hangar, engine cowling open again, but this time under orders from above. The report Heinen sent to Rechlin has drawn attention. 2 staff officers from the Luftwaffe's Erprobungsstelle, the Test and Evaluation Command, arrive by car, followed by a team from Messerschmitt. They wear clean uniforms, polished boots, and the expression of men who still believe the war can be won through design. They've come to compare. The Mi-262 jet fighter, Germany's last great hope, is to be examined beside the American propeller plane that has owned the skies. The juxtaposition feels cruel. The jet, sleek and metallic, represents brilliance and desperation. The Mustang, painted olive, drab, and patched with duct tape, represents practicality and abundance. The meeting begins with numbers. The Messerschmitt engineer recites them proudly. The Mi-262, a maximum speed 870 kilometers per hour, ceiling 11,000 meters, 2 Mk-108 cannons, revolutionary jet propulsion. Heinen listens, expression unreadable. Then he answers quietly, and service life of 40 hours for each engine, assuming the bearings don't fail first. The jetman doesn't reply. Everyone knows the truth. The Jumo 004 engines are miracles of compromise. made from low-grade metals and luck. They burn out faster than they can be delivered. They open inspection panels on both aircraft. The Me-262's belly reveals a tangle of hydraulic lines, each hand-bent, each unique. The Mustangs are straight, clipped, color-coded. The jet's gun bay is packed so tight that 2 men can barely reload it. The Mustang's Browning bays swing open on hinges with hydraulic assists. The Americans seem to have designed their airplane for mechanics. The Germans have designed theirs for glory. Schulte points to a small detail: the radio. The Mustang's set, the SCR-522, slides out on rails. Its crystal frequencies are stamped on a metal tag. The 262's fugue 16ZY, by contrast, is buried behind an access panel that requires a contortionist to reach. Changing channels requires recalibration by a specialist. Their pilots fly. Ours tinker, Schulte mutters. Outside, the pilots compare notes. The Luftwaffe test man speaks of climb rates and dive limits, of the Me-262's unmatched speed. Speed wins battles, he says. But fuel wins wars, replies Kruger, who flew the Mustang. He taps the Americans' wing tanks. These let a lieutenant from England fight over Berlin and return for dinner. We can barely keep our jets airborne from one base to the next. The officers record every comment, but their eyes betray irritation. They want solutions, not lessons. They tell Heinen to draft suggestions for how to adapt the Mustang's ideas to German designs. He shrugs. We could copy everything except the factories. That night, Heinen and his crew stay in the hangar long after the officers leave. They drain the Mustang's oil, clean its filters, check the magnetos. They don't need to, but the work steadies them. In the quiet, Heinen speaks what they all think. You can fix an engine, you can't fix an economy. He walks to the Me-262 parked outside under tarpaulins. Its engines, cold and fragile, glint in the light. A note from maintenance is pinned to the cowling. Left turbine replaced, time remaining 7 hours. He reads it twice, folds it, and slips it into his pocket. The next morning, a fuel truck arrives carrying the last of the field's jet fuel allocation. The base commander orders 2 262 seconds prepped for intercept duty.